Elimination Chamber Perth was a fun WWE Premium Live event, albeit a little bit predictable. I think out of all of the WWE Premium Live event predictions videos that I've done, this is the first time that I've gone 4 for 4. I went perfect with my predictions, and it's not because I'm some savant, it's just, it was very predictable. And it was a very consistently good show with one very weird low point that we're going to talk about in this video. However, it also didn't necessarily have that super memorable match that I'm going to be walking out of here talking about for the next several months. But hello, I'm Santi. I'm a professional wrestling content creator, and I'm going to be reviewing the Elimination Chamber Perth. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we upload daily wrestling content. And yes, I did get up at 4 a.m. in the morning to watch this PLE, so I'm only on about 3 hours of sleep, so I'm sorry if I look like crap. And immediately after recording this, editor, I'm going to go right to bed. So I'm hoping that, this is a pretty good edit. I'm really trusting you here. And shout out to the thousands of people that joined us for our watch along. If you want to be part of a watch along next time, make sure that you're subscribed here to this YouTube channel, or you're following me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/SantiZap. We do watch parties for not just WWE Premium Live events, but for every WWE show like Raw, SmackDown, as well as NXT. All right, let's jump into it. Now for this review, I'm going to be going match by match, but for the Elimination Chamber match itself, I'm going to also be giving thoughts about the individual performances from each one of the participants. Now, before the main show started, we actually got a pre-show match that was kind of announced out of nowhere with no build-up, no hype, and if you think about it, no rhyme or reason as to why this match is even happening, because there wasn't any sort of #1 contendership tournament or any sort of match to indicate why Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae are getting a #1 contendership for the WWE Women's Tag Titles against the Kabuki Warriors. Still, we're going to talk about that match first. It was a Monday Night Raw match. That's what this was. It was a Monday Night Raw match that was really mostly just building up to the hot tag to Indy Hartwell. If you don't know, Indy Hartwell is from Australia, and is one of the several Australians that's been left off of the match card. Grayson Waller didn't have a match. Bronson Reed didn't have a match. So it seemed to me like Indy Hartwell was just sort of inserted into this so that they could have an Australian not named Rhea Ripley on the show. And when I look at the landscape of different feuds that are happening in the WWE, I'm a little bit confused as to why this got any sort of PLE shine, even if it is just a pre-show match. There is no history in any capacity between the Kabuki Warriors and Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. This is something that literally materialized out of thin air. I just don't understand this. At the very least, the last kickoff match that we got at a PLE in the Saudi Arabian Crown Jewel show, that was Sami Zayn versus JD McDonough, at least they'd actually been building that up for a couple of weeks. And sure, it wasn't worthy of the main show. I understood that it wasn't, but at the very least, it made sense as to why it was happening. And this didn't. So I do not enjoy matches when there's no reason for me to care for whether I want someone to lose or want somebody to win. I don't enjoy just matches for the sake of having matches for the sake of padding out the show. So overall, I wasn't overly happy with the presence of this match to begin with. In terms of the work rate, it was good, but again, it doesn't exceed the expectations that you might expect from a show in a giant arena such as this. But yeah, this was really just a build up to the hot tag. The pop for the hot tag for Indy Hartwell was wild. Australians love Australians, and they demonstrated that during the hot tag sequence with Indy Hartwell. The match did end up with Candice LeRae eating a pin after a beautiful, insane elbow. That finishing combo from Kabuki Warriors is admittedly a really awesome finisher. 1, 2, 3, Kabuki Warriors retain. And not only was the match kind of nonsensical in terms of what happened, but just like the rest of the show, incredibly predictable, because I think the tag titles are going to be a plot device for this Damage Control storyline that's happening between, of course, the Japanese members of Damage Control that are still calling themselves Damage Control, and Dakota Kai as well as Bayley. Those titles are going to come into play. And of course, if we're expecting those titles to come into play there, we knew that there wasn't going to be a title change here. So again, just adding to the predictability of this show. So overall, I am going to give a thumbs down to the pre-show, but shout out to Indy Hartwell for getting that pop. That was cool. Do you want even more wrestling content? Consider coming over to Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Yes, I already upload daily wrestling content here, but I actually upload extra content that you're not going to see here, like my Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews. The Wrestling is Cool podcast is actually uploaded 3 days early over there, and Wrestling is Cool Gaming is also now part of the lineup over on Patreon. So patreon.com/SantiZap, go check it out. It'll be the top link in the description, or it'll be the link in the pinned comment. All right, back to the review. Let's go over to the Women's Elimination Chamber match between Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Naomi, Raquel Rodriguez, and Tiffany Stratton. Before we talk about the actual work rate of the match, what I liked, what I didn't like, let's talk about the actual result. Becky Lynch winning. Another predictable result, a result that I predicted in my predictions video, and a result that we were all sort of seeing from a mile away. And this was a result that they were more or less setting up for the better part of 8 months, as they did everything in their power to keep Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch away from one another, even going as far as sending Becky Lynch down to NXT, so there was no rhyme or reason for Becky and Rhea to tangle against each other before a big show like WrestleMania. So this was destined to happen. Here's the thing. Here's my problem with this whole thing. Yes, they were setting this up for several months, and yet even though they've been setting this up for several months, somehow out of all of the 6 women that are in this match, I was the least interested in Becky Lynch winning this, because when I look at the buildup that they've done for Becky Lynch and the reasons as to why I should be excited for this, it doesn't really go beyond, hey, this is a match between Becky and Rhea. That's really the only reason to be excited. And granted, that's a good enough reason to be excited for a match. That's a big money match for the women of Monday Night Raw. However, Becky Lynch's promos, the lemonade and, hey, you guys like the hat? Yeah, okay, the hat stays. And losing to Nia Jax in the buildup, like, they just haven't done a great job of getting me excited to see Becky Lynch be the one to win this match and have that shot against Rhea Ripley. Because let's look at the other women. When I look at somebody like Liv Morgan, I feel like Liv Morgan has a way better storyline in place. This revenge tour, of course, the fact that she was the last person to pin Rhea Ripley, the fact that she had a great performance in the Royal Rumble. I prefer Liv Morgan in this situation. When I look at Raquel Rodriguez right now, she is an uber sympathetic babyface with the struggles that she's going through with her skin condition, and she was out there, with that problem currently surfacing, and she went out there in front of all those people in Australia and said, fuck it, I'm here to perform. And to me, like, I really resonated with that. So I see Raquel Rodriguez as a really strong, sympathetic babyface right now. Naomi, it would be great if the WWE could tell the world, hey, free agents, we are going to make you a superstar if you sign with the WWE. Look at Naomi, sign from TNA, boom, we're already having her main event with Rhea Ripley. That would be cool. Bianca Belair, to me, that's an even bigger money match than Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. So if we're okay with it just being a money match for the sake of it being a money match, Becky versus Rhea, then we should be even more okay with it being Bianca versus Rhea, because to me, that's an even bigger money match. And Tiffany Stratton would just be fantastic, because it would be cementing the future of the WWE, and it would arguably be maybe in contention for the greatest potential women's match of all time, Rhea versus Tiffany. So I was just way more excited by all the other women's prospects of potentially winning this. And somehow the predictability still led towards Becky Lynch. And that's exactly what they executed. Because like I said, that was their plan for the better part of 8 months. Let's talk about the actual match itself. Something that I've noticed over the last couple of months, and I think many of you will agree, is that the multi-women matches in PLEs have been better than the multi-men matches at PLEs. I feel like the women's Elimination Chamber match was better this year, the women's Rumble was better this year, and the women's War Games match to me was better this year. So, I mean, the women have just been absolutely cooking, and I believe that they torched the house, and I say that this was the best match of the entire night. And understandably so, when you have Tiffany Stratton just being an absolute animal, doing things like a swanton from the top of the pod. You have Liv Morgan with some of the most creative offense that I've ever seen. Raquel Rodriguez doing some crazy stuff with power bombs and utilizing the cage as a weapon in ways that I haven't seen somebody use the cage as a weapon for a very, very long time. Raquel Rodriguez was an absolute monster in this. And of course, a lot of the cool spots coming from Naomi as well, and great feats of strength from Bianca Belair. Becky Lynch was the one that didn't really have that great of a performance in this. So again, it just, to me, it kind of compounds to the, okay, I guess it's Becky Lynch. If I have to pick a stand-up performer, to me, oh man, it's tough. it's almost a three-way tie. Like the craziness of Tiffany Stratton, the creativity of Liv Morgan, and the nastiness of Raquel Rodriguez, to me, have them in a bit of a three-way tie in terms of who was the stand-up performer. I'm gonna give it to Tiffany Stratton because she did the really cool Swanton bomb, and also the crowd was in love with Tiffy time. Tiffany Stratton is over, folks. I said something in my stream that I want to get your feedback on. I think that Tiffany Stratton as an NXT call-up is just as valuable as Braun Breaker. I think they're both going to be winning double-digit WWE championships over the next decade plus. And Tiffany Stratton, this was a great coming out party, and I cannot wait to see what they do with her post-Elimination Chamber. Let's talk about how everyone was eliminated. We had Naomi being eliminated by Tiffany Stratton after doing a attempted somersault sunset powerbomb from the top of the pod that turned into more of a neckbreaker. It was still super cool, but she was eliminated by Tiffany Stratton. Decent performance by Naomi, but I personally would have loved to see her out there for quite a bit longer. We had Raquel Rodriguez getting eliminated by a KOD by Bianca Belair, a nasty looking KOD. So, I mean, like, if you get eliminated by Bianca Belair's KOD, like, that's a respectable way to go out. Liv Morgan hitting, I think, was like a top rope oblivion to Tiffany Stratton. So it took one of the biggest moves in Liv Morgan's arsenal from the top rope to be able to take out Tiffany Stratton. So great showing from Tiffany. What was a little bit weird, the final three was Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, and Liv Morgan. Because when I saw that final three, I said, there's no way either of these two can pin Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair is just so above both of them in terms of being this powerhouse that I was certain we were going to have some sort of outside interference. Maybe a Jade Cargill, maybe Tiffany Stratton comes back in. But Bianca lost to a roll-up, which to me was very weird, but to me also adds to the savviness and craftiness that Liv Morgan has showed over the last couple of months since coming back to the WWE. But yeah, that ending sequence was all in the snap of a finger, because the second that Bianca Belair was rolled up by Liv Morgan was immediately taken out by Becky Lynch for Becky Lynch to win. Overall, this match was fantastic. Again, a very predictable outcome. A little bit of a peculiar decision in terms of how Bianca Belair was pinned. I was expecting far more, even if at the very least a sort of team up between everyone to try and take out this presence that is Bianca Belair, this super powerful monster that is Bianca. But no, it was just kind of unceremonious with the roll-up. But really the only downside of this match was its predictability, because everything else was really good. Everyone showed up. The crowd was hot. One thing that I gotta ask is, if you paid for nosebleeds for this show, could you see anything? Because there were the four pillars. There was also the like covering of the actual cage, and then the cage itself, which is already very difficult to see through. I don't think there's a good chunk of the audience that probably had to look at the monitors to actually see this match. Overall, this match was very good and gets a thumbs up from me. Next up, we had the Judgment Days, Finn Balor and Damian Priest being accompanied by Dirty Dominic Mysterio, taking on the New Catch Republic, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. Similar to the women's tag title match, but also not quite as egregious. I also don't understand the purpose of this match. Yes, there was a number one contendership, but there's no feud. There's no story. Why do I care about who wins here? I'm excited for the match itself. I love the in-ring work that we're about to get, and it ended up being fantastic in-ring work, but this is sometimes one of my complaints about AEW, and it would be a little bit two-faced of me to not point it out when WWE does it as well. I like good matches, but I also like, especially at PLEs, I feel like you need to sell me with just more than just in-ring work. I think I need a story. I need a feud. I need a reason to care for who wins and who loses. And really, I didn't care. I was just excited to see a good match, but that's not necessarily a great thing. One, I do hope that they split the tag titles sooner rather than later. And two, I hope that Judgment Day as the tag champs get given a proper story and a proper feud. And it looks like they might be setting that up with R-Truth and The Miz, maybe setting that up at WrestleMania. But this story with Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate was non-existent. Really, their first interaction was at the most recent episode of SmackDown that was pre-taped, that aired 7 hours before the start of Elimination Chamber. Like, that's not a feud. But hang on, because this match fucking cooked. From an in-ring work rate perspective, this was absolutely fantastic. It was an incredible matchup. Tyler Bate, in my opinion, stole the show in this. He was doing some crazy awesomely impressive moves here. Obviously, the standout move was doing a fireman's carry on Damian Priest and spinning him around for like what felt like 30 minutes. There was also so many close pinfalls here. There was some great outside of the ring shenanigans with Dominic Mysterio that started before the match even started, as he took the mic away from the in-ring announcer so that he could announce the Judgment Day. And he was just getting hailed by a chorus of boos, a ton of hilarious chants from the Aussie crowd towards Dominic Mysterio, calling him a wanker. They even had to censor the crowd by turning the screen black because everyone was giving Dominic Mysterio the middle finger. There was also a sequence where Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate were about to win the match. They had hit their finisher and they were dead to rights, but of course Dominic Mysterio slides in and puts, I think, was it Finn's foot under the rope to prevent the count. And then the ref, of course, kicks Dominic Mysterio. Crowd goes bananas. So there was a lot of great crowd work, a lot of great actual in-ring storytelling and great narratives. Like, I really hope that maybe this continues beyond this and that they tell a story, but it's very doubtful considering they're on opposite brands. And like in terms of status, like Judgment Day is just way above what is this team called again? They're called the not the New Quarter Catch Club, the New Catch Republic. They're just way above them, and we're probably never going to see this again. So it's a lot of cool things that are probably not going to get paid off beyond this match. But the match was great. The personalities in the match were great. The pin counts were so close. There were some that were just dangerously scary. But overall, this match was fantastic from an in-ring perspective, but no story. Makes me a little bit sad. I am going to give it a thumbs up, but come on. It's weird that this is on a PLE when you have so many other storylines going that have narrative, that have feuds, that have meaning and matter beyond just them being good matches. And for this to get a PLE spot when it's so hard to get a PLE spot, it's weird. It was weird. Next, let's talk about far and away the worst segment of the show, the Grayson Waller effect, with guest Cody Rhodes and of course the World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins. The segment already started with some weird vibes with Austin Theory making fun of Australia, like making fun of Vegemite, like some really low hanging fruit stuff, and then introducing Grayson Waller, who was like the most Australian guy that you could possibly think of. But the problem to me wasn't that. It was just like, why was this on the show? Like, what happened here? How did this further anything? I'm going to answer it for you. It didn't further anything. They gave us a couple of announcements. It gave us that Seth Rollins was now cleared to have matches in a couple of days. So it's likely that he might have a match or two to remove the rust from the gears leading into WrestleMania at some point in March. And then we also had Cody Rhodes call out The Rock and say that he wants a match with The Rock. And then Seth Rollins saying like, hey, I'm here for you if you ever need me. And that was it. Nothing else. There was no appearance from Paul Heyman, no members of the Bloodline. Rock was in there, Roman was in there. The segment on Friday Night SmackDown where Roman had a conversation with Grayson Waller and said, this is for your ears and your ears only. They didn't pay that off. This was a waste of time. A serious waste of time. I don't understand why this was on the show. This could have been an email. This could have been a tweet. This didn't need 20 minutes on this PLE that's already really hard to get on because there was only 4 matches on the main show. They could have had a match. They could have had nothing. This PLE ran over 3 hours. I think it was about 3.5 hours. It could have just been 3 hours and removed this. It was a huge letdown. Expectations were high, but not like through the roof. I think we would have been fine without The Rock, without Roman, but some involvement from the Bloodline or something involving the Bloodline would have been expected. It's just weird to fly out Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins for a talk show. I didn't like this. I really felt like it was a waste of my time. Look, this is the only thing I was mad for having to wake up for at 4 a.m. in the morning. It gets a thumbs down from me. Next, let's talk about the men's elimination chamber match between Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, LA Knight, Logan Paul, and Randy Orton. Similar to the women's match, this was also a match that was very predictable, that all of us were expecting Drew McIntyre to win, and he did. So again, we have predictability here. However, unlike the women's match, I do feel like predictability sort of worked here. I think it was okay for it to be predictable. Again, I always preach that it's not always a bad thing when 2 + 2 = 4. Sometimes it's okay to let predictability play out and give us the thing that we are expecting. Sometimes swerves for the sake of swerves aren't necessarily great. The difference between Drew McIntyre and Becky Lynch is that, unlike Becky Lynch, they've done an amazing job of building Drew McIntyre. In fact, rebuilding him entirely as a credible contender to Seth Rollins, a guy which, by the way, has beaten Drew McIntyre not once, not twice, but 3 times clean over the last 3 months, ever since their first initial match at Crown Jewel, and then followed into a loss at the War Games match, and then at a loss at Raw Day 1. So we should be bored by the concept of Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins, but yet the WWE has done such an amazing job of rebranding, repackaging, and making us care about Drew McIntyre way more. That's what's missing with Becky Lynch, but they've done just such an impeccable job with Drew McIntyre that the predictability here doesn't make it lose any points. I'm okay with Drew McIntyre winning, as predictable as it was. In terms of the match itself, I don't think it was as good as the women's, but there were some pretty gnarly spots as well. Shout out to Bobby Lashley, who threw Kevin Owens through the glass and then immediately turned around Goldberg style and speared Logan Paul right through the glass as well. That was a pretty gnarly spot. Another standout moment was when Bobby Lashley was eliminated. They played this concussion angle that forced the refs to get in there, which forced the door to get open for longer than we are normally accustomed to, which allowed AJ Styles to sneak in there with a chair and absolutely beat the ever-living piss out of LA Knight, setting up, now almost confirmed, LA Knight versus AJ Styles at this year's WrestleMania. So for those that were hoping for LA Knight versus Logan Paul, womp womp, I guess it's not happening. Sorry. Don't worry. We're going to get to what's going on with Logan Paul at WrestleMania in just a second, because this was huge. Another standout performance has to go to Randy Orton and his amazing job selling the back, to the point where I was making comments about how great Randy was selling the back, and people were like, Santi, you know, I think that this is real. He's actually hurt. And obviously he wasn't, because the entire ending sequence of the match was choreographed around his back injury, which means it was planned. Randy Orton is an absolute master. He is so good at selling that he's got people at home concerned about his health. Randy Orton is just such a gem to this sport. He just makes things look so easy. And Logan Paul's performance was a really fun one this year, considering he got little to no offense. All he did was just get beat up for the better part of 20 minutes and took all of the craziest spots. Logan Paul is just, man, every time he just somehow continues to exceed expectations. I continue to raise the bar for expectations with Logan Paul, and he continues to push right past that and deliver another stand-up performance. Logan Paul was great here. Let's talk about how everyone was eliminated as well. So we had Bobby Lashley being eliminated by Drew McIntyre after being hit with kind of, not quite consecutively, but pretty close to consecutive back-to-back claymores. So they did a pretty good job of protecting Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley was also kind of handicapped going into this match because they were playing up an injury angle to his arm caused by Karrion Kross, which to me is the only way to realistically make me believe that Bobby Lashley wouldn't eat everyone in here, because that's Bobby frickin' Lashley. Kevin Owens got hit with an RKO, so he got eliminated by Randy Orton, the guy that he said that is the only guy in this chamber match that he likes. LA Knight was eliminated by Drew McIntyre because of AJ Styles. And then we had Logan Paul being eliminated by Randy Orton by a beautiful RKO from out of nowhere. As Logan Paul was pulling out the brass knuckles, the camera is panning and zooming in at Logan Paul as he's smiling, getting ready to use the brass knuckles. RKO from out of nowhere, 1, 2, 3, and he's out. But the big talking point comes to Randy Orton's elimination because of Logan Paul. As Drew McIntyre is setting up to hit a Claymore kick, Randy sells the back to the point where Drew isn't actually able to hit the Claymore kick because Randy wasn't even able to get up, but that gave Randy enough time to hit an RKO from out of nowhere. As he's about to go pin Randy Orton, boom, brass knuckles from Logan Paul to Randy Orton. Arguably one of the coolest, most creative finishes for that Elimination Chamber. That's the one side I was not expecting. I was not expecting the way that this ended. So even though it was a predictable finish, it was an unpredictable way as to how we got there, because now we've got what I was not expecting, a setup of Logan Paul versus Randy Orton for the United States Championship at WrestleMania, because that was enough to put away Randy Orton, as Drew McIntyre was able to slide over to Randy Orton and get the win. So yeah, we got a predictable victory here, but we also got an unpredictable feud that that I don't think any of us really had on our bingo card of Randy Orton versus Logan Paul. I'm very curious if maybe when they were on Impulsive, Logan Paul maybe really endeared himself to Randy Orton, and Randy Orton vouched for Logan and asked to work with him, because I'm excited for this. I really am. Overall, the men's Elimination Chamber was really fun. It gets a thumbs up from me. Now let's talk about the main event, Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax for the Women's World Championship. Although this was a battle between heels, Rhea Ripley was the biggest babyface of this entire week, and that crowd was going absolutely bananas from her, from the entrance all the way through the match right to the very end. Australia loves them some Rhea Bloody Ripley. First, the result. Yes, again, predictable. But that's okay. The WWE did a really good job of actually building this feud. This was a very good storyline. They did a great job of building up Nia Jax to being a credible threat to Rhea Ripley, although not credible enough to make us wonder whether Rhea Ripley would actually lose in front of her 50,000 plus countrymen. Still, they did a really good job of creating this new threat in the WWE for Rhea Ripley, somebody that has sort of felt untouchable up to this point. And she was not untouchable in this match because she more or less got her ass kicked for the majority of this match by Nia Jax. She got put through a table, got hit with a bonsai, like a top rope Samoan drop. Like, she was getting worked by Nia Jax, worked safely. Nia Jax has gotten so much better in the ring. It's nowhere near in the back of my thoughts anymore that she might injure somebody. Nia Jax is good. She's good in the ring, and we just now need to accept it, that this hate for Nia Jax might just be nostalgic at this point, because I have no reason to dislike Nia Jax. I don't love her promo work, but that's, I would say, a matter of preference. Her in-ring work is undeniable. She's a great worker. And she also took some pretty nasty moves from Rhea Ripley as well, most notably this nasty top rope superplex that eventually led to this actually kind of like a Trish Stratus chick kick into a beautiful riptide into the zesty pin that we all know. And yeah, Rhea Ripley retains. Predictable, but I'm okay with it because they did all the other parts correctly. The match was fun. The match was brutal. There was a very clear story that the match was telling, which was Rhea Ripley trying to overcome the unsurmountable challenge ahead of her in Nia Jax. And they told this story by having Rhea Ripley getting absolutely dogged and manhandled in a way that we hadn't seen ever since this version of Rhea Ripley has come to surface on the WWE main roster. So I was very happy with this match. I was happy with the result. I was happy with the crowd interaction and the crowd reaction to Rhea Ripley. I love that Rhea Ripley got that WrestleMania-like pyro at the very end. I love that the women got to main event. I don't think that there's anything to dislike here. It gets a thumbs up from me. Overall, the show sort of felt like a B-tier pay-per-view, like a Fastlane, like a Payback, just in a really beautiful giant arena with a pretty hot crowd as well. But the lack of major world title matches, of course, aside from Rhea Ripley's match, really saddled this pay-per-view with a, hey, it's not quite WrestleMania because WrestleMania is around the corner, but we're going to give you something. But we're going to make it look real pretty to get you all excited. It was a good show. It's just the venue, I think, just creates expectations that maybe just can't be met, because when you have that many people in that big of an arena, I don't know, I feel like we're expecting more than 4 matches, and we're also expecting there to be matches, all of them, with great storylines and great narratives going into it. And not only did we not have that with all of them, but there was a match with no storyline and no narrative in the tag match. So it was a little bit weird in terms of like the matches that they chose to be on this PLE. And yeah, predictability, it happens from time to time, but that's okay. Overall, I'm happy with the PLE. Would I have woken up at 4 a.m. knowing how it would end up going? Yeah, probably still. You know, WWE is so good right now that waking up at 4 a.m. to watch a WWE PLE is not something that I have to debate anymore. I'm going to. But this was like 2011 and it was, I don't know, capital punishment. I wouldn't be getting up for that, but I'm going to be getting up for WWE PLEs because they've been so good. And this one delivered as well. Again, predictable, but it delivered. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think of this PLE? I'm very curious about your thoughts on the Grayson Waller effect. Is it just me that thought that was ridiculously weak? Let me know. All right, folks, I'm done. Get out of here.